join us. I counted to 5. That's all I wanted was 5. Trying to get my my meeting information up on my screen.
No, I'm asking.
It's going to be difficult. Okay, first item is going to be the review of the budget recap and timeline. Board members, we do have a scheduled budget meeting if necessary for next week on Tuesday, April 16th at 5:30 p.m. Do any of you have any issue with that scheduling next week? No, this has always been on the calendar as a potential meeting date.
I cannot attend.
You cannot attend? Mr. Latchley, I know Tuesday nights are bad for you. Oh, 6 days from today. Mr. Cole, Mr. Hidalgo. Would you take it outside, please? Thank you. Are you the one I heard? All right. We have a couple of options here. We can either have it on Tuesday night, Thursday night, or the following Tuesday night. If anyone has, it sounds like maybe April 16th is not the best date. But I think we're going to need that meeting. Tuesday, April 16th is fine. Ms. Morris can't make it, but I believe everyone else is okay. So.
April 15th is a Monday. 16th.
There you go. 6 days from now. Is that okay with you, Mr. Angel? Okay, so then we'll leave it be at April 16th, Mr. Guidry. We'll have the special board meeting on the budget, the 4th one, and we'll review all of the funds, the general fund, and all of the ones that are listed on this agenda item.
At the listed time?
At 5:30 p.m.
Okay.
Yes, sir. There's no change to the timeline.
Okay.
Item number 2, group insurance fund proposed budget. Mr. Guidry, have there been any changes to the proposed budget for group health since the February budget meeting?
No, and it was actually, the group health was actually presented along with the general fund.
Oh, it was at the last meeting.
Yes.
It wasn't in the February meeting?
Correct.
Okay. There have not been any changes to them? If there have been no changes to this budget, I would entertain a motion to, what is the motion language this time need to be? Is this proceed to the adoption process?
Well, if we're having the meeting on the 16th, then that would be the language then.
Okay.
Tonight, it's just if there are any recommended changes, then that would warrant motions.
Do we have any motions for recommended changes in the group health insurance fund budget? Hearing none, we will move on to item number 3, the preliminary report on the 1920 general fund budget summary, projected revenues and expenditures. Mr. Guidry, have there been any changes in this since the last budget meeting?
Yes, there have been a few, which I'd like to go over. We're trying to get the schedule to come up on the screens. If you'd like, I can go ahead and get started. So basically, with regards to the general fund summary, what we did was we added we have a column entitled Administrative Adjustments, which takes us from the last meeting. And in that Administrative Adjustments column are the adjustments that we're proposing to make to the information that was presented during our last meeting. So with that said, the first item that we are proposing be adjusted, and these are listed on, not only included in your general fund budget summary, but they're summarized on the attached Schedule B, where only the adjustments are listed there. Nonetheless, on row 46, you have it up, so I'll give you a minute to call it up. On row 46, there is a reduction of $1.5 million to expenditures to the line item salary step increase. And the reason for that is the salary step increase was included in the already included in the baseline budget. So when we were preparing the baseline budget, we do so through using Alio. And we had run two scenarios. We ran one without the step and one with the step so that we would be prepared to move forward depending on which way the board opted to go. So when there was an indication that the board was in favor of the step, that's the baseline budget that we began with. So the bottom line is the 1.5 is already in the baseline budget, so this was a duplication. So we're removing that line item, but we're not removing the step. The step is already in the baseline budget.
So that means our teacher salary schedule will increase by $500.
What it would typically, yes.
Okay.
What it would typically be increased by.
Thank you.
Row 69, reduction to transfer to capital project to one meals, $112,652. That's just, that takes the number that's currently showing of, and let me flip to that schedule. Of $2,280,652, and it reduces it to one meal. So point being, it was slightly over one meal, and with that adjustment, it's been adjusted to one meal. Row 70, Barranco and BO staffing not included in the 1920 baseline column. We had a few positions. They're all listed in the applicable footnote that's attached to the general fund budget summary. And basically, the assistant principal, the instructional leader, and the speech therapist at both Barranco and BO were not included in the baseline budget. And so that and one nursing position that would serve both schools. So if you sum all of that up, it reflects the need to increase the budget by $524,000. Row 71, Barranco and BO teaching positions not included in the baseline budget. There were three, I think, more or less to handle electives. Is that correct? $198,000. Row 72, a transfer equal to $500,000 to self-funded construction for our school renovations and additions. This transfer was approved back in October of 17, and it's an annual transfer. And when we were reviewing the transfers, reviewing the general fund budget summary, we noticed that the $1,084,000 had not been included. It has been done in the current year and in the previous year, but it was not included in the budget for next year, so we're adding it here to include it, to comply with that board action taken in October of 17. Row 73, add 8.5 ratio line item to custodian allocation schedule. What that is proposing is adding an additional line item for schools that have 230,001 to 250,000 square feet within that range, which in essence would be Lafayette High School and Southside High School. It would add half of a custodial position for that size school. So between the two schools, it would add one FTE, and that's what's reflected by that $36,000 amount. Row 101, cost center 1224, physical plant and grounds. Earlier at the regular board meeting, there was an agenda item that the board approved to increase the HVAC contracted services to reflect the gymnasiums and the new office building, the two new schools. So this is basically incorporating it into the budget for fiscal year 20. This is a $120,126 that's in the agenda item that was approved earlier during the regular board meeting.
Mr. Guidry, Mr. Angel has a question.
I have a question. The services for the HVAC, when does it end? And we had a discussion about quotes and bidding and all that. When does that contract end? And can we, when it's time for renewal, can we put it out for a bid or?
Yes, I believe we will be doing that at the end of the next school year. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. So fiscal year 20, 6 months prior to that time, the end of the school year, we would begin the RFP process.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Thank you.
Please continue, Mr. Guidry.
Okay, row 139, cost center, 1428, textbooks, an additional $200,000 of ESSA funding that we're including here. Now, when we come back on the 16th, we should have the amount, we should have the award at that time. It will require some adjustment based on what we've seen and heard recently, as recent as today. I would think that we would be coming back with, currently we're at 1.2 million. We're looking at it being closer to like 900,000 of funding that we'll receive. So we'll come back with that adjustment once we have the supporting paperwork to support our making that adjustment. Row 190, cost center 1514, health and life insurance premiums. That's retirees, a reduction of 189,474. Each year we provide for, it's an estimate as to the estimated increase in the number of retirees. So this has no impact on the board's contribution for the retirees. It's a reflection of the projected number of retirees. So we had a projection that we felt we could trim back a little, and that's what that $189,474 reflects. It's just an estimate of the increase in the number of employees. It does not impact what the board's actually contributing currently on behalf of the employees, retirees. Next line item, one-time increase, row 196, band uniform allocation, an increase of $40,000. Each year, the high schools rotate in terms of who gets new band uniforms. Next year, it's Lafayette High, and because of the size of the band at Lafayette High, we're proposing a one-time increase. The standard allocation has been $100,000. This would make it $140,000 because they have 400 plus band members in that particular band. So that's what that item relates to, and that is the summary of the adjustments that were made since our last meeting. I would ask if there are any board member comments or questions with regards to any of those adjustments.
Do we have any board member questions? Mr. Angel.
Would it be appropriate to put concerning the 1.5 MFP?
Yeah, so one of the things that what Mr. Angel is talking about is there's been some doubt cast over whether we will be receiving the 1.375% increase in MFP for the next fiscal year. Certainly don't know if anybody can say with any certainty whether we will or will not get it, or what percentage of that increase we will or will not get. So what I would like to see for our budget meeting on Tuesday is some options. First off, how much is that? The 1.375%, I think we're not quite using that full amount, right? Are we using some lesser number than that?
Yeah, I believe we have 1.25.
And how much in raw dollars is that?
Approximately 1.6 million.
So what we're asking you to do then is to show us an alternative reality where we don't have that 1.6 million.
Okay, we can do that.
And then we can all be pleased as punch if it magically shows up, but then we will have done the hard work in advance if it does not.
We'll have that for Tuesday.
Thank you very much. Does anybody else have any questions? Do we have any public comment or questions about any of these line items in this document that Mr. Guidry has just reviewed? Does anyone have any suggestions on where we can cut $1.6 million before next Tuesday? We're going to discuss it again, don't worry. All right, moving on. Mr. Guidry, I guess the cost center detail will simply give more color to the changes that you just described. Am I saying that correctly? You'll see in particular
detail for the numbers that are reflected in the general fund budget summary, so that there would be no changes beyond those that we've discussed.
Okay, so if you are interested in seeing the particular accounts that the changes are aggregated to show the numbers that Mr. Guidry just reviewed, that would be in items 2.4, 2.5, 2.6, 2.7, and 2.8. Do we have any board member comments on any of those agenda items? Do we have any public comment on any of those agenda items? I'm basically asking you the same question, so I'm not expecting you to comment. Finally, 2.9, revision to custodial staffing allocation.
We included in the proposed budget is that additional ratio, additional line item for schools with square footage of in the range of 230,001 square foot to 250,000 square foot, whereby they would receive an additional 0.5 FTE or an additional 0.5 custodian. So we're looking for board action on that, so we'll know whether or not we can move forward in that fashion.
Ms. Delachele moves that the board approves the recommended revision to the custodial staffing allocation of adding an 8.5 ratio line item for schools with square footage in the range of 230,001 square feet to 250,000 square feet, as well as the revision for the square footage range of head custodian 3, increasing the upper end of the ranges for square footage to 250,000 and number of employees supervised to 8.5. Would anyone be so kind as to second Ms. Delachele's motion? Seconded by Mr. Rangel. Is there any public comment on this motion? Any board member comment? Dr. Shessel.
Mr. Guidry, would you be able to help explain to me the ramifications? What would this do for an individual janitor? Like, I'm trying to think of an individual situation. To me, it feels like we're taking them away from the direction I want to go. I just need some help with this one.
This would be adding an additional half a position for schools that have the larger schools whose currently the square footage stops at 230,000. The current allocation schedule. This adds an additional layer or additional line item whereby we acknowledge those schools that have beyond the 230 and allocate an additional 0.5 custodians to help take care of that additional square footage. Now, for the head custodian, currently the number of people they supervise ties to the current schedule. Just recommending that the 8 be changed to 8.5 so that there would be no change other than to the number of people they supervise.
Thank you, Dr. Chasson. Do we have any other board member comment? Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote.
Seven for, none against.
Motion passes. That's the last item on the agenda. This meeting is adjourned.